Hi, I'm Christine from Close to My Heart. Now, I know you're not supposed to pick your favorite children, but you can pick your favorite stamp sets. We'll give you permission. And today, I'm going to show you how you can use coordinating stamp sets with your Cricut shapes for a sophisticated look on all of your projects. I'm going to show you some of our favorite new stamp sets for spring, summer. Now, we introduced the Artiste Cricut cartridge collection, it's quite a mouthful, last fall, but we're always bringing out brand new stamp sets that you can use in conjunction with this amazing cartridge. Today I'm going to be focusing on 4 of my personal favorites. First of all, you're going to see our frame flare with these 4 great frames. Every single one of them is Cricut coordinated. I love this one. Such a fun set for the spring. This is Hello Blooms. Look at these fun flowers, and remember, each one of the shapes that is Cricut coordinated also shows you what page to find it on the booklet, so it makes cutting those shapes so easy, and also what size to cut it out at. And then my third favorite for the spring summer is another in our Perfect Fit Frames series. So if you loved the Perfect Fit Frames from before, you're going to love this newest addition to the Perfect Fit Frames stamp set line because it has all new textures and shapes, and every single one of them are Cricut compatible. Now let's look at a couple of different pieces of artwork that have been made using some of my favorite stamp sets for spring and summer. First of all, look at this adorable little pillow box using that Perfect Fit chevron frame stamp set. Isn't that fun? Also accessorized with a couple other great cartridge collection pieces from Artiste. Now what's great about Artiste is that, of course, not only does it coordinate with stamp sets, but it has so many fun dimensional shapes that bring just about any project to life. Let's see. I'm going to lay that right down. Let's look at this fun card. There you can see I've taken some of those Hello Blooms and layered them up dimensionally so that the one underneath that I've stamped in my sweet leaf actually looks like leaves. Such a fun, simple way to dress up a card, and of course, a great Artiste card to go with it. Notice how I've repeat stamped that hello inside just to give it a unique sentiment. Then we've got this card over here that again uses that Perfect Fit Frames, but in kind of a different way. You're not seeing a traditional image on the inside, but yet more of those fun Cricut cut shapes. And then lastly, we've got this amazing stamp set that coordinates with the Chantilly paper pack, and every single one of the frame pieces is also a Cricut Artiste compatible shape. You can see that I've really mixed it up here. It's perfect for adding a journaling square or stamping a title. This stamp set is even a completely different stamp set, not intended to coordinate with either the Cricut or this particular shape, but it just shows how you can mix and match stamp sets to get a look that is all your own. Okay, now I told you that I would be showing you 4 of my favorite new stamp sets, but I've saved probably my favorite for last. I'm a mom of boys, so the In Gear set really speaks to me. Let me show you this great mini book that has been made using Cricut Artiste cut shapes. Now, not only are they great for stamping, but they are wonderful when you cut them out a little bit larger. Look how they have formed the base pages of this great mini album. A few photos, a few little bling pieces here and there. Isn't that fun? Look at those tag shapes. Everything simply hole punched and then jump ring bound. You can add a little bit of frayed baker's twine to hold it all together. It's really mixy-matchy. It's really boyish using those later skater papers. And so you can tell not only have I used these great gears, but I have focused on the In Gear stamp set, which is so Cricut friendly that it makes everything look divine, and it's also so easy to do. Look at all these great shapes. So not that you can't figure this out at home because it's the easiest thing ever, but because I'm excited about In Gear and how great Cricut coordination is, I'm just going to stamp one for you. I've taken, let's see, what color am I working in? Pear. And one of those shapes, which again I have just cut according to what it says on the carrier sheet. It's going to tell me that page and the size to cut it at. And so I don't have to do any of the work. I just get to take all the credit. A quick stamp image, it's going to nestle beautifully, and I can add it as an embellishment onto my mini page. So I also need to show you this great sleeve for it. You can find this in the Spring Summer Idea Book. This entire project is featured. Look at this. This mini book fits beautifully. If I can make myself do it. There you go. Look how perfectly it fits. Then it really makes a nice gift or a complete project. What is this? Nothing more than one of those oversized gears. cut it small enough to stamp on, cut it a little bit larger, and it makes a great base page for a mini album. Cut it very, very large. This one was just cut at the fit to page size so that it took the complete page. Folded and scored it, and you can see that it makes an extraordinary sleeve for my mini album. So let's take a look at some of the other tips and tricks that you can do just like this great sleeve to really bedazzle some of your Cricut cut shapes. Now what I've got right here is actually a little bit of a trick that I'm going to show you with a border. Now most of our borders are designed to be 6 inches long, which means if you're working with a 12 by 12 page and you'd like a border that goes all the way across that 12-inch length, you're going to need to cut 2 borders, and they're about 1 inch high. That's very standard in both the borders that you'll see on Art Philosophy and in Artiste. 6 inches, 1 inch high. That's a very standard looking border, and you can see this little floral border actually is taken from the Art Philosophy cartridge. But let's just say that I want to use that border and I want it to be a single cut 12 inches long. This is the exact same floral border that I just showed you, but I've cut it at 12 inches. Look at that, it goes right to the edge of the page. Now most of you who are Cricut aficionados know that typically Cricut will only cut to 11.5 inches. I'm going to show you a little bit of a trick, if you don't know it already, to get a full 12-inch border. I also want to point out that when you cut something at a larger size, it will scale proportionally. So that border that was 6 inches doesn't just double to become 12. It scales up so that it's about 2 inches in height. I really like the look of that, but be aware of that when you change the size, the length of your border, you're also going to change its shape, and sometimes that can also change its dimensionality. Now, let's move all these. I love them, but we're going to move them. Now, I'm going to show you my Cricut mat right here, and you'll see where I have cut my 2 border pieces. In fact, let me bring this right in here. I've cut my 2 border pieces that are 6 inches in length. And if I wanted to cut it 12 inches, you're going to see the problem right here. When I position my paper right where the mat indicates that I should, it will not start cutting for 1/2 inch. Look at my beginning cut. My beginning cut cuts 1/2 inch down, which means there is about 1/2 inch of paper that's not cut at all. And it runs right off the edge. Darn, I've only got that 11.5 inch border. How do I fix that? It's pretty easy. Let me show you. You simply trick your machine just a little bit. Instead of positioning the mat where indicated on, or excuse me, placing the paper where indicated on the mat, you simply scoot your paper down 1/2 inch. Start the paper 1/2 inch and let it go a little bit below so that you're positioning the paper where the knife will actually start cutting. Then you need to simply tell your Cricut that you're going to be working with a 12 by 24 inch mat and that you want to cut at 12.25 inches in length, and it will give you that perfect length that you need for your border. You will have effectively fooled the Cricut into believing you have a longer mat, and it'll cut that full 12 inches. You can see now that my cut begins right at the top of the paper and that it goes all the way down. And that is how I can get that darling, complete 12-inch mat. Don't have to hide that with any extra embellishing or anything like that. So that's how to do that. Now, I'd like to show you 1 or 2 other important tips and tricks that you might want to use while you're working with your Cricut so that you can also get the most out of it. Remember how I told you that that great gear sleeve was cut using the Fit to Page feature. Fit to Page allows me to take all the guesswork out of cutting a shape. If I'm wondering, oh gosh, will this particular gear cut out at 10 inches? Is that what I want? If I want it just as big as it can possibly go, rather than trying to do the math in my head, I use the Fit to Page feature. And I've done that with this sun shape right here. And it will then cut that sun. I'll just see if you can show it a little bit. The camera doesn't quite like to pick that up, tone on tone. It will then give me a cut that is as big as it can possibly fit on my 12 by 12 page. Really, really easy way to get the largest possible shapes out of each one. I have one last feature that I'm excited to share with you, and it's called Real Dial Size. So many of the amazing shapes on the Artiste cartridge are linked together to make finished projects. Now this is great, but it may be a little tricky as you're cutting because you're not going to want to cut each one of those individual shapes at, say, 4 inches. No, what it'll do is those linked shapes will all cut at the same size needed to make the finished project 4 inches. So some of them may be 2 inches or 3 inches, but when you put all the pieces of the project together, the completed finished size will be the size that you cut them at 4 inches. Does that make sense? Let me show you a little bit. I've got a Valentine that's here using several linked shapes. Now, I've cut them at 5 1/4. You can see the outside piece of my Valentine. I've cut all these shapes have been cut at 5 1/4. Which means this piece, which is also a linked shape that's been cut at 5 1/4, is intended to back my doily shape so that it covers it completely, which means that this particular piece may not be at 5 1/4 because it's designed to give me a finished full project at 5 1/4. If I want to cut this piece alone at the 5 1/4 shape, I'm going to need to use my real dial size and set that to 5 1/4. You can see when I do that, let me pull this one off. When I do that, here I've done them in a contrasting color so that you can see them a little bit better for TV purposes. If I don't cut them at 5 1/4, do you see how this red one is smaller? I cut this not using real dial size at 5 1/4, and it cut it to fit these other pieces. If I want something to cut at its actual size, I need to use real dial size, and can you see how those are 2 different sizes? That's why the real dial size feature exists, and it comes in so handy when working with Artiste. Artiste is one of the best cartridges ever, and thanks to Close to My Heart's being the leader in stamp sets, you can guarantee that they're always going to be fun, fresh, innovative stamp sets to pair with your favorite cartridges. I've shown you 4 of my favorites, and there are even more in the Spring Summer Idea Book. If you'd like to discover them for yourself, get your own idea book from your independent consultant from Close to My Heart, or visit closetomyheart.com.